Clifton Clarke III, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Hey, how are you?
I'm better than I deserve. I tell you, every day is, I'm blessed by the best. What can I say?
Yes.
Looking at your LinkedIn page, you're up in Detroit. I happen to love Detroit, have friends up in Detroit. Those of us who travel a lot, you hear a town and one of the first things you think is, how's the airport there? Detroit has a surprisingly nice airport. When I travel through Detroit, I'm always like, this is a great airport. Love the
Very
Detroit.
nice.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
you're the ATD Detroit chapter chief, learning strategist, you're leadership champion. This is what's on the LinkedIn. But as we say here on Lessons from Learning Leaders, LinkedIn doesn't tell the whole story. So here's your chance. Tell me your story.
Wow. So it's a lot, but in terms of training, this is a very similar story to a lot of people that, I talk to in terms of our profession. I had no idea that this career existed. I went for a management job and I was in training for management. And I was commandeered by the trainer who was giving us orientation. I do not know to this day. I do not know what she saw. I, I I didn't get a chance to speak a lot. I was doing a lot of listening. I remember that. So maybe she liked my keen attention to detail, my active listening. But she picked me right there, and she asked us, instead of going to lunch, do you want to come up and see the system? And I chose to go up and see the system that we were going to be working on. And somehow that impressed her. And as it turns out, the company had just been bought out, and she was going to move to Phoenix to be the training manager for the entire company. And she needed a trainer for the site. And she said, told me that she thought I was the perfect person. And she said in June, we're probably gonna submit a job rec for it. Make sure you apply. I'd love to interview you about it. And that was it. It was here. And she allowed me to. So that's when someone chose me, but I chose it when she allowed me to. I think it was a pamphlet or something. And I had like 14 people on the phone, and I did a phone training over this pamphlet. And everyone said I did so great. People were so gracious of how I was able to deliver the information. And that feeling that I did something that is going to make someone better in their job, that's going to feed their family and increase their livelihood. That's what it was for me. And that was it. I was hooked from there on out. From
It's
there on
difficult.
out.
It's difficult to describe that sense of fulfillment that you
Mhm,
get to people who aren't in this, that feeling like, okay, I've passed it on.
mhm.
They're now better. And it really is a sense of just improving those folks around you. And I don't know about you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I have some books on Ikigai around here. And
Mhm,
I think about that. I was talking to one of my old uh, colleagues about Ikigai, and I said, "Look, you've seen me. You see my office; it's full of books. I mean, I
mhm,
read all the time. But the thing about
mhm.
it is, if I read something and I learn something new, then I get excited. I'm like, everybody needs to know about
Yep,
this." And so then I
absolutely.
want to share that with people because I feel like I've got a chance to make people better. And I want
Yep.
to do that. I want to help them. And when you can experience that in the classroom, I mean, that's our high is
Yes, absolutely. And for me, it was over the phone. I hadn't seen any of them at all. I didn't know what they looked like, but them listening to my voice and I guess the way that I naturally conducted the class, it drove some people to send me emails. I was just blown away by the impact and the gratitude of people over teaching a pamphlet. And I just thought, I said, what else can I do with this? What else? And so her name is Winter Morris. I do want to give her credit for this field, for me being in this field. Afterwards, Winter said, "Yep, just like I thought. You're a natural at this." And so that's when I started to learn and understand about corporate education. I took this test in undergrad that told me that I should be a teacher or a lawyer. Well, I didn't want either of them because I thought that teachers dealt with unruly kids, and I didn't want to go to any more school after I finished my bachelor's. And so I said, I'm gonna have to go to law school and all of that. I don't want to do that. And so I chose computers. I was in college in the last 4 years of the 90s. And so computer science was a very hot field because Windows was exploding, and there was a lot of opportunity there for a lot of us. And so I enjoyed computers. I enjoyed learning this new technology. I enjoyed teaching my parents about it. And so that's what I just chose. I went into it, and then I got into a computer science class and didn't like the programming. It's like it was C and Unix. Just
Yeah.
it all ran together for me. And then Wayne State University, which is my alma mater, they created in 2000 a major called Management Information Systems, where you learn the technicalities of computers, but you're responsible for explaining it to the rest of the organization. I said, I can do that. Practitioner, I don't think so, but I could do that. So even then, talking to you and reliving my past, I could see I was always on this path of communication. I want to be able, like you said, to tell people the things that I know and that I've learned. And so I got that major, and I was off and running. They're still not knowing anything about corporate education, because it would be 6 years before I met Winter. But I'd always sort of had this pedigree of training and development and didn't even know it. Didn't even know it was a career. Trainer never came up on that assessment. It never did. So,
It's funny though how we find the way. We find
mhm,
people, and that it's not just trainers. We're not a special folk. We're just like everyone else, but our life, I mean, we know what we want, and we can tolerate things, but we're always
mhm.
looking for where, kind of our home is and where we'll find that fulfillment. Some of us are blessed enough to find it.
Yeah, that's where it was for me. I felt at home. So after that job, I worked for a business process outsourcer who did work for Apple. And I so admired Apple as a company. And that is where I really found my home. I knew that this was what I wanted to do because I applied to be a training specialist with them. But when I got there, I experienced what it was like to never have to work. I went to work every day and I never felt like it was work. I'm telling you, that job was the job that said, man, this is what you're going to do until you die. And so that home feeling, I got that. I got that.
So how long was it between when you were first discovered essentially and when you became like involved in ATD, when you became like a chapter lead because I think for a lot of folks, and I may be mistaken here, but I think generally we see folks who will get into training, and training traditionally is you stand in front of the room, you have some PowerPoints, you go through the PowerPoints, you trained them, they're trained, they go back out there. But there's a whole nother level of training out there. The
Mhm,
people who, and those are the folks who may train for a year or two and then they're doing something else.
mhm,
Not that they're doing great work, nothing against them.
mhm,
But then there's the folks who look at this and say, wait, there's a lot more to this.
mhm,
And I think the folks who are willing to move away from the PowerPoints and say, actually,
mhm.
let's get into some facilitation. Let's take it a little higher. And how long was it before you found yourself saying, let's be the best at this we can rather than just, I guess, mediocre, not even mediocre, but just what's expected?
1 year.
Okay.
So, winter, I got the job, and then Winter was the manager for about another year, year and a half. And then I got this new manager. His name was Joe Dunlap, and he was in Wisconsin, and he had studied training and development for years. And he told me in one of our reviews, he said, you should check out this ASTD. It was
Hmm.
ASTD. And he said, you should check out ASTD, because, they really give you a lot of techniques and a lot of cool things that you need to know about training people. Um, the thing that I found out was that people loved my voice, that they said I had a radio voice. And so that's what they loved so much about my voice. However, I hate my voice because the way that it comes over when I hear it back, I'm like, oh my God, it doesn't
See,
sound like me.
well, you're lucky. I'm told I have a face for radio. You have a
Oh,
voice for radio.
listen, we're a complete person because I got the voice and you got the face. And so they had been telling me that, but when I went to ASTD and I started to learn about adult learning theory,
Hmm.
learning that people learned a certain way and most of them didn't know it. Most adults say, "Oh, I got to put my hands on it." That's not true. I trained a class with a young lady who knitted a teddy bear the entire time, didn't take one note, and she passed with 90s on all her exams. She was an auditory learner. Like she hears it and boom, she's got it. The people who need to take notes, and no matter what you're saying, no matter what you got, they got to write down everything you say. Those are people who are visual. They count on your PowerPoints because I hate PowerPoint, because to me I think it anchors me, but some people depend on that because they have to see what you're saying. When I learned these things, Dwayne, I was like, oh my gosh. And most people don't know it. And so over the years, I would educate them in class, like, you seem like you can learn this way. Let's try it. And so that it was 1 year after I got into ASTD and I started to understand all these nuances. That's when I started to learn about my impact in class. And I learned about voice inflection. I learned that I had a very loud voice because I've always been, I'm a big guy, 6'3", 300 pounds. So I've always just been a really chill guy, and, nobody bothers me. So I really don't have any reason to be upset with people or to, do things like that. And so I learned about voice inflection, and I learned how to use my voice. And then when I got with Apple kicked that into high gear because they had their own way of training and their own way of setting up classes, their own way of creating lesson plans that was different than what I was learning in ASTD. And so it was just like this burst of knowledge and this whole new world opening up. I was learning and teaching at the same time. And then it was about 3 or 4 more years before I decided to get with a local chapter because I didn't know that there were local chapters.
Right.
I joined the national and I went to the national conference because the company paid for it, but I didn't know anything about a local chapter. And then when I got with local chapters, the local chapter in Detroit, that's where I found people who lived right alongside me, who did the exact same thing and had the same complaints that I had. So
Were
yeah,
you were you at the St. Louis, or not St. Louis, the Salt Lake City ATD
yes,
okay, that was the last one I was at. So we've shared some of the same ground there. That's
yes,
cool. That's very cool.
I love Salt Lake City. I got uh, stuck in the fence there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just my own little weird aside, when I would travel all over the country. I mean, I was constantly on the road, and the people I'd work with, we all had our own things that we'd go do. A friend of mine, if he was driving and he saw a historical marker, he'd go out of the way and go check that out. My thing was thrift stores. And Salt Lake
Mhm,
City has the best thrift stores in the country.
mhm,
I'll fight you on that one. Yeah,
mhm,
I've seen them,
mhm.
but that's why one of the reasons I like Salt Lake City also. But let's talk about what you taught at ATD this year, because if there's one thing that trainers can all agree on, is that we live in a very volatile world where we are just one bad quarter away from our department being gone. And assuming, that you're doing everything you should, it still can come down to where you're living in a world of change. And with AI and everything going on in the world, how are we supposed to cope? How are we supposed to deal with this? And I'm trying to I had it open here, the title of your um session,
Mhm.
but I've got so many windows open now. I can't find it. But it
It
was
was
like from
pivot or perish.
pivot or perish. Yeah. So
Yeah.
tell me, what how do we do that?
So in my response to AI and everything that's happening is to go right to the trainers, because I know that we all know historically, whenever a company wants to reduce or save money, the training department is the first place they look. And when they find easier ways to do things, in particular with AI, all we've been seeing is that, you can get an AI to teach a course, and you can, you can get this software where, you can just tell it a few things and it'll create information and pop out a course for you. I have turned my attention to exactly what we should do, which is why I submitted for that particular topic, pivot or perish. um, Trainers have to adapt. We have to, or we're going to be right out of the job market. The ways of doing things with, you know uh, 4 to 6 weeks to create a course, that's not happening anymore. We don't have that kind of time anymore, and it doesn't mean that anything's going to be sacrificed. The technology is great, that would assist us in creating things faster. Our biggest problem will be the expectations of the people who are adopting the software and adopting the AI. And so the very first thing, and I have three things that trainers should do. The very first thing we have to do is stay calm, because we're going to have to, through our example, teach folks how to adapt. Be very honest about what's happening with training and with the education of employees, and share that so that you show people how you can adapt to this instead of being afraid of it. I talked with a colleague maybe about a month ago, and she's got a couple more years to go before she retires. And she's like, I just wish it was today. I don't I don't want to get into this. I just want to safely retire, and go on about my business. And I understood her because of the hastiness. First of all, the hastiness that we're seeing in companies, we've always seen. I've been on the front lines of many projects, many software implementation, and usually the motivation is not what it should be to adopt a particular software. It's usually in response to something that went wrong, or it's a favorable price. And a lot of times the frontline workers are the folks that are left out of it, but it's for them. So that's why trainers have to be calm, and we have to assert ourselves there and remember the frontline workers, because we have to speak up for them. Margaret Spence talked a lot about that, and talked about how trainers are the experts when it comes to bringing new information forth and with change management. So that's the very first thing, Dwayne, is stay calm. Understand that we're going to have to show adaptability through our example. We have to show the way that we are adapting to things. We have to show employees the way to adapt, because everyone's emotional, and people, especially when some of their colleagues have been laid off, and they're thinking, why am I spared? They have survivor's remorse. They're thinking, I'm next. We have to weigh through all of that, because now you have to learn this new thing, and I can't teach it to you if you're all in your emotions here and you're blocked here. So we have to, again, number one, stay calm. Number two, we have to ask the questions. We have to partner with leadership and ask the right questions. We're the mouthpiece of employees. So we have to, of frontline employees. So we have to partner with leadership. And in those after class reports, we have to tell them what we're seeing, and we have to express the fears of the employees so that they can address it when they get back to their particular departments. And then the very last thing is we've got to learn it inside out. I know that we love to partner with subject matter experts, and usually that's IT. But everybody right now, Dwayne, it seems like they're trying to master their own little corner so that they're not pushed out. No one's learning everything anymore. And so everyone's learning just enough of what they need to learn in order to save their piece of the market. And for trainers, we have to be the ones to know what is coming so that we can warn frontline employees and show them how to use it. So just three quick things, that I have implemented in the train. I have a train the trainer series through my company and we've included the things that you need to do in order to pivot. That is the pivot. The pivot is adaptability and advocating for the people that are there, partnering with leaders, which we always say that we do or that we should do, but now it's more important for us to do that because we're saving the workforce.
There's a couple of things that you said that struck me hard, that I profoundly agree with. I have a 3, 4 day, I don't remember, it depends on who wants it, train the trainer, training myself.
Hmm.
And one of the first things I impress upon them is rule number 1 for me is it's not about you.
Hmm.
And that's because I've seen so many trainers who will get up there and the people in the room can tell right away that the trainer's mindset is, you are all so lucky to have me here. You don't know how blessed you are that you're about to be the receiver of all the knowledge that I have. I'm going to overwhelm you with my brilliance. Just sit back and try to take it all in.
Yeah.
Right. And so I always say it's not about you. So that's to get them to think that the reason they're there is to improve performance, not in themselves, but in the people in the room. And you've got to have that mindset that it's not about you, it's for them. And so you have to pivot because it's not about you. Oh, you may have some self interest in this. Of course, you don't want to lose your job either. But
Hmm.
when you can do your job well, it's because you're helping the people in the room perform better. And that creates value for the company. And then if you can prove that, then your job's not in a whole lot of danger for the most
Absolutely.
part. Now, something else that I
Absolutely.
was thinking about was the need to pivot, the need to continue to improve.
Hmm.
My office here is this whole section over here, which y'all can't see. This is nothing but training books here, rows and rows of them that
Hmm.
I got from my good friend Bob Pike.
Hmm.
And Bob called me one day. He said, "Dwayne, you like books?" I was like, "I love books." He's like, "You want to come up to Wisconsin and get my books? We're moving to Tempe." And next day, I'm driving from Missouri to Wisconsin,
Wow.
got his books. He calls me a couple months later and he says, "Hey, I was just diagnosed with cancer. Can you come down to Tempe and get the rest of my books so my wife doesn't have to deal with them after I'm gone?"
Mm.
Went down and got his books there. In the collection of books, as I'm going through them, I find these stacks, and my kids are looking at these. It's like, "What's with all that plastic? What's all that?" And I hold it up, and it's overhead. It's those overhead sheets with
Uh-huh.
Bob's handwriting and stuff on it. And I kept those. I don't ever intend on using an overhead projector,
Uh-huh.
but I keep those as a reminder. Bob went from what? From overhead projectors to PowerPoint, and
Yeah.
I imagine there were people back then making the same arguments that they're making today. PowerPoint? I don't
Mhm.
wanna have to learn that. Why would
Mhm.
oh, this is so hard. I
Mhm.
can't do it.
Mhm.
And we hear the same things. If there's one thing consistent in training, it's that things are gonna change and you need to change
Mhm.
with it.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I can just imagine in that example you just gave what it was like coming to PowerPoint after doing the clear sheets, the overhead. Um, I never really liked PowerPoint. I never really liked and then, I'm just gonna say it, one of the greatest speakers ever, Steve Jobs,
Yeah.
he hated PowerPoint, obviously, but the whole slide thing, whenever he gave his talks, he'd hit the button and maybe it was a picture that reminded you of something that he was saying. He recognized the need for visual people to take in what he was saying. But you have these people, man, that are just it's deaf by PowerPoint. All the words are on the screen and then they stand there and read them. And it's man, but it is a great tool because it provides that visual element that we talked about that a lot of people need. So it's necessary. But if you can find another way to satisfy your visual learners, might work for you.
I think I love the idea of staying calm also,
Yeah.
because once you can get that, I even have to explain this to my kids. My kids will something will happen and they'll start getting, there's just I'm like, whoa, slow down. How you helping anything right now? Yeah, things are bad. Keep your head, keep your wits about you. It's the same situation here. Yeah, things may be bad. How are you going to move forward? And if you're panicking, you
Hmm.
can't see that path. So you
Hmm.
got to step back some, and that is hard for people. How do you? We've got just a few minutes here.
Hmm.
When you can feel that sense of dread setting in, how do you overcome that?
Well, it's on an individual basis. For me, I go freak out somewhere and then it's showtime. That's just that's just the God's honest truth. Some people can just move right past it, and then some people can't. For me, I go somewhere and I freak out, and then I come back, and I'm on point. And I learned that from from Apple. Again, Apple has this model that they have 10-minute breaks, 50 minutes teaching, 10 minutes off. So we had breaks every 10 minutes at the end of every hour. And I would tell every class at 50 of the hour, let me know so we can go on break. And that was our thing. And we would always have a break. And that was really our time to just kind of like, digress and get prepared so that you can always deliver things the way that they were supposed to. And so one year, my training team actually, one year I was doing, every year I did trainer for my training team. And I decided to ask him, I said, hey, we've had a lot of changes this year, and you guys, you seem pretty chill about everything. What's going on? Because I'm the guy. I asked the question. I'm hey, is everything okay? How you taking the information? And all of those 10-minute breaks, that's what I'm asking people. If they're sitting in the class instead of going on a break, how's everything going? How are you taking it in? That's me. I'm that guy. So I asked my team and I said, one of the greatest moments in my life, Dwayne, I said, you guys, we've gone through a lot. We've trained so many courses in a 6-week span. We have people are acting out. It was a lot happening at that time. And I said, what's going on, guys? And they said, nothing. You're calm, so we're calm. And they said, you are always the example to us that no matter what happens, get back in here and do the job. And that was the biggest compliment, man, that I've ever had from any of my employees, because that's where I understood, I am the trainer and I am the person that's supposed to be teaching other people, but I also am the example, and people are watching everything that I do. They didn't watch everything because they didn't see me go back to my cubicle and scream into a paper bag, but they saw when I came back. That's what they saw. And so that's where, when I was thinking about how we should pivot and how we should do, first thing for trainers, stay calm. Show everybody else how to adapt to this situation. And then they will listen, but they'll watch more.
I think that is profound
Hmm.
and ancient wisdom that you're
Hmm.
sharing there. I think about the Stoics, thinking about, you can't control everything. You can only control how you respond
Yeah.
to things around you.
Yeah.
And things around you may be going crazy. It's like that. I think it was Pirates of the Caribbean, that scene where the ship's just getting destroyed and he's just
Yeah.
slowly walking down the stairs like,
Yeah.
okay, all right, well, this is the situation,
Yeah.
freaking out about it doesn't change the situation. And so
It doesn't.
you keep moving forward and you say,
And that's a
okay,
tall
how do we
order
handle that?
now. We're
Yeah, it is.
talking about our livelihood. We're talking about, listen, before I talked to Margaret Spence, and before I submitted to present at ATD, I was terrified because I love building training the way that I loved building it. And I embraced the new AI, the new AI software packages where, you can create online training and you'd have some nice real life like bot talk for you. But I built it. I gave it what to say and what to do. And now I'm hearing that that may not even be needed. That some commands can be given for certain packages, and then it will pop it up just like that. I shared my colleague's fear when she said that, and she's just like, I'm just ready for the 2 years to come. I get it. I get it. But what I also get is what we just talked about, is that We have to find a way through this. That pivot is finding a way through it, and there is light there for us. We can show the value. We are the experts, and we can show the value because I know that everyone's excited, but we're going to be the ones to snap everybody into reality and say, hey, don't forget about this, don't forget about that. And that's where we're going to show our value. We're in service. We're servicing the frontline employees, and we're servicing leadership who may be in a mad dash. Companies are all about competition. If my two main competitors have this software, I'm going to want to go and get this software if it's in my budget because I want to compete. But common sense and some expertise from trainers who are used to seeing multiple options and choosing the best road forward, knowledge from them is what is necessary, because we're going to make you think about things that you never have to think about, which is, how is this going to affect the employees that you have? Is this reasonable? What are the things that are going to happen with this particular software? What's the worst thing that could happen? People don't think about that. They think about the benefits, and they think about the affordability, and they think about keeping up. I fully understand that. This is a great time for businesses because they get a chance to save a lot of money and save a lot of time and service their customers faster. You can do that with your training department because we're going to make smart moves forward. And then the very last thing that Margaret Spence taught us at that podcast was that AI technology has been around for a while. IBM adopted this technology back in 2000, 26 years ago. They had some form of AI, and then they laid off a bunch of workers and then had to bring them back in 2 years because they prematurely acted. They were so excited, like we're all excited. They were excited probably at the prospect of saving a lot of money, obviously with all the layoffs, saving a lot of money, things like that, but then had to bring a number of people back a couple years later. So we have that. Do your research, read a lot on history, on what has happened, and then submit yourself as a trainer, as a learning leader. Submit yourself in what is the best thing for frontline employees. Keep your leaders and your partners abreast of what needs to happen.
So, Clifton, the headline that I read yesterday, Microsoft is canceling internal licensing for Claude code for thousands of its engineers because they found it's cheaper to use humans. Yeah, they didn't realize that those little tokens, those little credits cost a lot of money. And there's another story about a company that gave all of its engineers access to Claude, and then they racked up a $500 million bill.
Yeah.
So it isn't
those questions. Yeah. This, we 2 years ago, when I first started learning about AI, someone came into the classroom and we were just doing Chat GPT. Someone came into the classroom and said, you got to be careful with this because it pulls from everything from the internet. And people don't scrub their pages. They deactivate them from you seeing them. But ChatGPT pulls from every piece of integral information. So it could be pulling from information that's old and not useful anymore. So check your sources, especially when you're doing research. And that still rates today. Check your sources when you're doing research to make sure that where they're getting the information is valid. And we did a search, and sure enough, I clicked on the resource at the end, and the web page was no longer active. That company had taken that down. And so there were cautionary tales from the very beginning. And we are now that more and more people are aware and more AI companies are popping up, we have to be more and more aware of these fail safes, these risks. We need to make sure we understand the risks of what's happening. So those cases that you brought up, there are many more. You could do a Google search and find so many. We got to be careful. Those are the things that trainers can do to help leadership choose the right path for this AI. And that makes us invaluable.
I got to wrap this up real quick, Clifton. If someone wants to get a hold of you, they want you to come and talk to their team, or they want you to come and speak at an event, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, there are two ways. Actually, there are three ways, obviously. So very first thing is my email. My email is cclarke, CCLARKE, at Detroit-learning.com. That's our website. You can submit there for someone to call you back. My LinkedIn is Clifton Clarke, just one word, Clifton Clarke with an E. And then lastly, the website again is www.detroit-learning.com. You can access me there, and we'll respond within 24 hours.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. I've learned a lot. I'm sure people listening will learn a lot too. Thank you.
Thanks, Dwayne. Appreciate you.